Artaxias' coalition had grown. The three Caucasian petty kings all agreed to guarantee Armenia's independence for like in return. The security this brought gave Artaxias the confidence to complete the liberation of Greater Armenia, to overthrow the puppet rulers of Sophene and Commagene, old Armenian fiefs co-opted by the Seleucids when they divided and conquered. Sophene fell to an attack by Machares, a man quickly gaining a reputation as the best commander and worst conversationalist in the kingdom. To prevent the fall of Commagene, the Seleucids finally sent a task force to take command of the situation. Ardus. I thought if Antiochus sent anyone it would be you. What's that meant to mean? Means you're still getting the raw end of the deal. Must have offended the mighty one greatly to get sent out to pasture like this. Quiet, traitor. I am here to receive your surrender without terms. Oh, they really put you in the furthest pasture they could find, didn't they? And look at you, your armor sliding off those puny shoulders like a maiden's veil. I didn't think you'd take this seriously. Clearly you are out of your mind to be doing any of this at all. Free Armenia. Artaxias, what is the difference between Free Armenia and the Empire's Armenia? Well, that's obvious. One of them is Armenian and one of them isn't. That's just rhetoric. Then ask the people of Armenia. Yes, those that march against you today. I will enjoy seeing the people of Armenia drink from your skull. You've really grown up, Ardus. But haven't we all? You don't even care about killing your so-called fellow Armenians. I care greatly. Even more, I care about the good which the sacrifice of the few will bring the many. A wide and empty mouth. Keep it shut for everyone's sakes. Quoting Academy Master Eulodes directly, aren't you? Guess you paid attention after all. We're done here. You are, anyway. Enjoy the show. Hello there, welcome to another episode of Wings of Eden. This battle with the combined Seleucid-Commagene force started with a mini-battle against just the Seleucids because their army was coming in on its own, and it's just a few units. Our cavalry saw most of the enemy cavalry dispatched in a very prolonged engagement far away, while our main force didn't really react to the arrival of the enemy at all. Apparently I couldn't be bothered to turn my flanking units to receive this enemy attack, so we're just going to take it on the flank, which isn't the best idea. The upside is that the enemy do just pile in and cause a big blob here, so our arrows, ballista shots and javelins will now be able to inflict big damage. But the real thing I was planning here is just to attack the blob with the cataphracts. You can see Artaxias setting up here at the back, ready to get that going. The enemy did manage to do something similar because their Agama, their companion cavalry basically, managed to attack my javelineers, which was obviously quite nasty, but that distraction made it nice and easy for us to get a very juicy rear attack on all of their not particularly heavy infantry right here. One unit routs immediately, the other one's now surrounded and fighting a heavy unit. They won't last long. We also charged into the back of the Agama and they went as well, so the Seleucids have lost their commander. Very soon this turns into a slaughter. So we'll get rid of all of these troops and make sure they can't come back from routing, and then we'll have to reform because the real battle is going to start soon enough. My horse archers are starting to harass the Commagene force. They've got some actual melee cavalry here, which normally wouldn't be a problem because we could keep our distance, but because our guys are already tired, the enemy were catching up to us, and I think they routed one of my units. Luckily they left the horse archers alone after that and ran all the way across the map to attack my cataphracts instead, which was fine by me because while the cataphracts aren't amazing in melee, a little charge kills half of the enemy. and soon they'll just rout as well. I also brought up the horse archers to fire into this melee, since while I'll mostly be hitting my own side, the high armour on the cataphracts means the arrows are unlikely to damage them, and they're more likely to damage the enemy. Meanwhile, the main fight is about to get started. We got outflanked on our right, and I just about bothered to turn a unit to receive this cavalry charge, so nothing too bad came of this. And now we're fighting some medium-ish cavalry with our levy spears, that's alright. The front-line engagements are going to be quite balanced, in theory at least, because we're both just using Armenian levies. What the enemy have in their favour is better range support. They have javelins coming over the top of their men, and they're going to push through in the centre with their own cataphracts. While it's not a very good charge because it's going through the back of their own unit, it does do some damage to my men, and they also rout right away, not liking the idea of fighting that heavy unit, so now there's a huge gap in our centre. My own cataphracts have finished things off with those cavalry out on the flank, and I'm now switching their side. I'm going to put them over on the right side of the army, since that's where we're under the most pressure, although technically you could say we're under the most pressure in the middle. Another unit's going there, and it's all come down to this one unit of levies that is standing right in the middle with huge gaps on either side. The enemy very kindly weren't outflanking it, they were pushing through the front, which bought us some extra time, but still they're not going to last very long. Our cavalry have now arrived on the right, and we need to start clearing units out fast to free up units and rebuild our formation. Some enemy cavalry distract our taxiers, so he'll have to fight with them for a bit. Our other cataphract unit will charge past them and into the flank of all of these enemy levied spears. We don't immediately wipe them out or anything, but even fighting a spear unit with cavalry is okay here because the difference in stats is so high, we'll just gradually hack through them. Speaking of being hacked through, there goes our centre. So now it's down to our archers to hold the formation. They're not on skirmish mode. We are going to try and stand our ground here, just so things don't become absolutely chaotic, and we'll see how they do. We did manage to break the enemy here on the right, so that's going to start freeing up not just our melee units who were fighting them as well, but our cavalry to go and chase away all of those enemy ranged units that are now relatively unguarded. There are a few spearmen out there, but as we saw, our cataphracts can deal with these low quality spears. A quick rear attack here routs another unit, that's freeing up some more infantry, and things just generally start to look good on the right. Meanwhile in the centre, the disaster that I expected just didn't happen. Our archers did really well in this melee. I think it's because they weren't very tired, whereas the enemy were, and that makes a particularly big difference in this mod. So the archers hang on right there, and the centre is secure, buying us all the time we need, not only to push these ranged units away, but to start turning the cataphracts back around to come and save the centre. Our taxius has fun getting ranged units, and I think the backup unit here comes to save the archers. A quick impact will rout these low quality spears, and with this, the battle is going to turn around completely. From now on, the balance bar will be gradually going in our favour as we slaughter all of these routing units. We're also slaughtering ranged units as they try to escape from the fight. While the enemy still have a lot of stuff left, it's all going to be skirmishing away. It's javelin guys with no ammo and archers who'll just run to the end of the map. So I spent a long time chasing them and eventually started to catch up with the odd unit and kill them. It's just going to be a waiting game at this point. We can chase them all the way to the line on the other side if we need to, but our horse archers were able to quickly catch up and start melees that our infantry could then capitalise on. The cataphracts were taking their time killing these javelineers over here, and I'm guessing this is just tiredness as well. Once they're tired, they aren't very good, and maybe that's why they weren't able to take down slingers in the first battle we fought. Anyway, the enemy chain routed due to army losses, and the battle suddenly comes to an end. A close victory. We took heavy casualties, especially among our melee forces, but no full units were lost, and that's all that really matters, and the siege situation has been improved. Here you are at last, then. So ends the Oronted line that has led Armenia since time immemorial. Actually, I'm of the Oronted line myself, good king. Of course you are, good rebel. I'm sure everyone will be happy to believe that. You know the people well, then. Makes me even more sure that I should spare your life. Rule with me, Ptolemeus, my kin, as part of free Armenia. Let the Seleucids descend into the chasm of history they have broken open. You know, I often thought of doing what you're doing. I thought that I could betray my masters and be free. I would have had to go through you to do it, standing faithfully at Antiochus's side. I wanted to do it not for myself, not even for the people of Armenia, but for my king. I dreamt that I could give my life to grant him a breath of freedom. King Orontes was a good man, and you killed him. He killed himself trying to fight the Seleucids. I've proven it's possible, so clearly he was lacking as a leader. He died fighting you, and you took his throne. You are a rebel. I was using Antiochus, and it worked. Now you will use Armenia to create your own dynasty, backed by these lies of legitimacy and heroism. I will use my last breath to live my dream and rebel against the wishes of a Seleucid. You, the worst Seleucid of them all. This is what I get. The world can't believe that something good is finally happening, and would rather die than know anything about it. So then, I will grant your wish and send you to meet King Orontes for yourself. If I'm lying, then come back with the truth. Now that we've dealt with the minor Armenian kingdoms, we need to take both of the provinces that those two regions were in. We're going to start with Osrene to the south. The other one, Cappadocia, contains the Galatians, so taking this one first will avoid any unnecessary wars. To try and get things going, we're going to ask our allies to advance on relevant cities using the war target feature. It's a bit hit and miss whether this does anything, so we just fire it and forget really. Hopefully it will work. You can also see the Ptolemaic Empire is currently attacking Edessa, which we'll want as our ally or client state at some point, so hopefully they won't take it. We get drawn into some war with a faction I'd never heard of, but apparently they were right next to us, so we'll just have to keep an eye out for that. Nothing has come of the wars we keep joining off to the north. The Carcasians seem to be dealing with things adequately. I've upgraded my blacksmith now, so I can make my armies have gold level armor, meaning while we can't have actual heavy infantry, we can have some heavy levies with lots of armor, so that will hopefully increase their survivability. Not quite sure what the numbers mean, of course, but you'd imagine it will help. We're going to set a good example for our allies by going on the offensive with Machares. We're attacking here Antiochia Mygdonia. We don't want to take it, of course, but there's a possibility that we could create a new state here if we do end up fighting and winning that battle ourselves. As for Artaxias, I was worried by the fact that the Seleucids seemed to be wandering up towards the Black Sea coast there, and could easily bring that army down to attack our little bit of Cappadocia. For this turn, at least, I'm going to gamble on leaving the front line undefended so that Artaxias can start moving to support our attack over here, which will make life much easier, even though he has gotten rid of quite a lot of his own levies in order to avoid waiting to replenish them. As we move on, we get an offer of alliance from Trapezoros. We'll take this since they're also at war with the Seleucids. We want good relations with them, and we certainly want to avoid war with them if we can, since they're not in one of our victory provinces. Now the next turn comes about, and I noticed we're not only losing money, but we've got a food deficit, so the economy seems to be in trouble. Furthermore, the Seleucids are moving into our territory, so we're going to need to deal with that as well. I think the reason we're losing so much money is that we've got both of our armies out in the field, and they cost more to upkeep while they're not sitting in your own territory or in your own towns. So, one way of dealing with that is attacking this town right now. However, without many pieces of siege equipment, I eventually decided not to bother with that. Instead, we'll just move Artaxias back into our own territory, now our income looks a little bit better, and we'll try to ambush this Seleucid army using Artaxias' force by putting it in the forest here. We can use the hidden stance to disappear, and there's a chance the Seleucids will just walk into us and give us a battle where we may or may not have the upper hand. Not sure actually fighting the Seleucids with the armies we have is a very good idea. Here's a chance to test that idea, but I'm actually not going to take it. The Seleucids in general have units that outclass ours, and in this case they've got numbers on their side as well, so we certainly don't want to fight here. we'll need to bring quite a lot of extra numbers ourselves to overcome the fact that our mainline infantry, the levies, could just be routed from the front by some enemy generic hoplites or pikemen quite quickly. So we do need an enormous amount of surrounding potential so we can hit the enemy from all sides right at the start of the fight and hope we somehow win. Anyway, we'll save the strategizing for later. The situation changed in a not particularly interesting way eventually. The Seleucids tried to make an ambush themselves near our town here, so I thought, well, let's just sit in the town, let's stop gambling here, we'll just defend our territory. If they want to attack, they can try, we'll have the walls on our side. As for the situation at Antiochia Mygdonia, we can't attack if our allies don't. That's the situation. We need those numbers, as I said. So I'm going to have to wait for the war target thing to go through and for the AI to actually act on it before we do anything else. Meaning we're on the back foot. The Seleucids have the initiative. Let's just hope our coalition actually works. It's been impossible to get everyone to agree. We are meant to be a coalition, but everyone acts independently. Going to start complaining about independence, are you, my lord? Yes, if it's independence from their senses. We need to work together to survive. The crux of the problem here is that such things are what Antiochus and his ilk kept saying. Perhaps that is why King Ptolemeus suspected you to be a part of said ilk. But it's not true. This isn't a business of truth, it's a business of volume. Truth is a tool, not the message, and not the only tool either. You've set yourself apart from the failed kings of old. Now we set you apart from kings whose success only bred more trouble. We can declare that the free kingdom of Armenia is complete. Are you implying that's a lie? Everyone will think it is, right now. They expect you to go conquer the world and invite its wrath and destruction in return. Let the Medes lead the next attack. Now it is their turn to win freedom. Freedom from us. If they behave themselves, I don't see why not. Can I blame you if this all goes wrong? Yes, but keep in mind I'm writing the chronicle, and anyone else just wouldn't have the same flair. Well, just write that everything went fine, no matter what happens. You underestimate me, my lord. I've already written it. Things start to look up in the next turn, as not only did the Seleucid army go away somewhere, but Media Atropatene sent 2 stacks to aid in this attack. So now we'll get the siege going, and those 2 allied stacks should come and just sit next to us to help us out. The Seleucid army that was threatening Artaxias has also disappeared, so we're going to gamble that it's disappeared permanently and start bringing Artaxias down to support the attack as well, so we've got our maximum force brought to bear on the enemy. The Alans want peace with us and they're willing to pay. That's good. We didn't even participate in the war and we ended up getting some money from it. So a nice little arrangement from joining the Caucasian Allied Wars. Now, at the start of the next turn, we learn that we're in a state of famine. Not very nice, and I was wondering why, because I thought our food situation was quite stable, and it's just because it's a particularly bad summer right now. I'm not sure exactly, but I think moving our armies out of our territory might also give us some sort of food debuff because of the game's supply system. But to be honest, I haven't looked into how the supply system works at all. I'm just winging it, so maybe that's a problem. I do still have room to put some more food buildings down in the new Cappadocian region, so we'll do that to make our supply a bit better. In the meantime, we might as well go ahead and make this attack, since that will help us out with our money situation. We are losing money a little bit right now, and I think that is because our men are in enemy territory. It does increase their upkeep. The battle is nothing because we have 4 stacks of troops thanks to Media Atropatene, so we just wipe the enemy out with minimal losses. Now we'll go ahead and liberate a new faction here. It's Nabatea. Not to be confused with the existing faction called Nabatea, one of the desert kingdoms down to the southwest. There are just now 2 Nabateas, and one of them's in Mesopotamia now. So that's all good, we've sorted that out, meaning we've got 2 of the 3 regions of the province of Osrene. We'll start working on Edessa next, the big one. I also thought if I moved my army back into allied territory, maybe my income would stabilize. It doesn't stabilize right away, but at the start of the next turn, it does indeed stabilize. So hopefully that is actually working as I think it works. Our allies quite dutifully followed us over here to Edessa when I gave them the war target, so that's nice. Not that we really need them according to this balance bar. The city was recently attacked by the Ptolemaic kingdom. You might remember we saw them hanging around here earlier. And speaking of the Ptolemaic kingdom, it says here that Nabatea has declared war on them, and I was like, wait, what? But luckily enough, in this case it's the other Nabatea and not mine, so no army is going to be storming up here anytime soon. We are now in the turn after I started that siege at Edessa, so we've got a piece of siege equipment. That means we can do an auto-resolve. Our allies have also moved a bit closer, so I thought we'd have an even bigger advantage on the balance bar, but it's actually smaller because the enemy threw a governor in there by the looks of things, a high-ranking governor as well. Still, we can auto-resolve safely and nothing bad will happen. However, we can't liberate or subjugate anything here. That means what we need to do in the game's logic is to sack the city and then wait outside to see if our allies will move in and take it, since there is no way to explicitly give them control of the area, which is always a shame. I need to know a few details of how you handled the situation. It needs to be clear that Armenia did not do this for itself, or that none of us did it for ourselves. Well, the bitter truth of the matter is that our men did manage to find a few treasures tucked away in there. You see, the place was rather empty in terms of wealth and population on account of a recent attack by the Ptolemeus. That's perfect. Okay, what we'll say is that the greedy Ptolemaic Empire marched across the world to make an example of these poor people, all but destroying the city. When you arrived, the survivors were cowering, expecting to be conquered or worse. But no, all our men did was help rebuild. We restored their walls and homes, and the people flooded our troops with what gifts they could muster in return. Then we marched away, our work complete, followed only by countless requests that King Artaxius come and claim the city to protect its people from the Seleucids and Ptolemaics alike. But nay, he was no overlord. His power was too great already to be trusted with such a historic crossroads as Edessa. The king reached out to his vassals in search of a worthy man to rule the city instead. Not once did the thought of personal gain cross his mind, and not once did the Seleucids dare challenge the wishes of Edessa again. I wouldn't want to put it in so many words, but that sounds quite marvelous. We get some good diplomatic news. Looks like Antiochus himself wants peace with us. We're obviously not going to take it. I did negotiate for a while to see if they were willing to pay or anything, but we don't want peace now because we're not done. But the fact that they're asking suggests that their armies in the area might have gone and gotten themselves killed, perhaps against the Ptolemaic Empire, I don't know. Things went as planned at Edessa. Media Atropatene made an attack, and Machares and our Armenian noble allies' support against the negligible garrison to get that win, and they're going to occupy the city. Would have been annoying if they razed it or something, but I think in this mod, razing doesn't happen quite so often as it does in normal Attila. With Machares and his force, I'm now going to have him sit around in our own territory and be on the defensive for a bit, while Artaxius is going to follow this Media Atropatene army in the conquest of Media Atropatene, the province. We need to take these three regions, and I suppose it makes sense for the faction that they're named after to take them. We need to get Ecbatana and a region off to the east of it. As the turn passes, the Seleucids come back asking for peace again, this time offering money. Things are getting better and better. We'll leave them sweating, of course. Now some more interesting diplomacy. The Ptolemaic kingdom offers a defensive alliance, and they're willing to pay. That's pretty interesting. That would be a strong ally to have, especially as a defensive ally, since they'll be forced to help us if someone like the Romans was to suddenly show up. I was kind of skeptical about entering an alliance with a big kingdom like this, but the guy ruling it, Ptolemy V, seems like a pretty nice guy, so I eventually went for it, after negotiating for a slightly better price. So there we have it. That should guarantee a fair amount of peace, since both sides are pretty likely to keep to the deal. Continuing diplomacy news, I'm going to get peace again with this Pontic faction to the north. You might have spotted I got peace with them already, but I got called right back into the war by my Caucasian allies, and I was pretty willing to just do whatever they say to make them like me, so I did break my own peace treaty. However, things are turning out pretty well, because we were able to force these guys to surrender for a fee, ending the war and making them our puppet state. So the situation in the north is now much more stable and it's peaceful. We forced everyone to stop killing each other and we are now slightly more influential in the area and more safe. That all went quite well. The one thing I still need to do in Caucasia is actually get military alliance with Iberia. We still don't have it, and we do need it in order to count as having secured Caucasia. They wouldn't take my money for it, but we'll keep trying and maybe we'll still be able to get it later. At this point in the campaign, I noticed that Artaxias, who is something like 50 years old, doesn't have any male heirs, and he's probably not going to get any anytime soon, and that's going to be an issue as the years go by, and they're going by pretty quickly in this mod. We'll start thinking more about that next time. That is all for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and a special thanks as always to the Officially Devon patrons. Artaxias is going to have a showdown with Antiochus himself in the next part of Wings of Eden.